morning, everybody. Unfortunately, this is not test day for test number 2. I've had to pull the plug on that, and I've been kind of racking my brain trying to figure out a way to explain what's happened here. For Mike Treen, he says, well, are you and Fuzzy, because you guys are the old ones in this group, he said, are y'all full of beans? So I have to say, yes, Mike, we are full of beans. But this goes back to my mentor, and probably his too. My mentor's dead and gone now, but he did a lot of simple things in his casting. And I think it hasn't been until here lately where we've had the internet to talk back and forth, and PDF files and stuff like that, where you can dig down into this and follow other people on it, people that are a lot more educated than I am, and they explain things better. And then so at some point in time, 10 really caught on, and then it's kind of like a pendulum swinging. You know, we're over here not using 10 much at all in the old days, just mixing our leads. And then all of a sudden comes through modern times, and 10's a real good thing, and here's why. And scientifically that's correct, and it proves out correct. But then it tends to swing a little further with all the hearsay talk. Oh, you've got to have 2% 10, blah, blah, blah. So instead of making this about instead of making a conversation about the use of 10, I want to take this along the lines of having a conversation about finding useful information in a fail. And I call this a fail, and I haven't even shot the bullets yet. You can see they're still right here, all organized, waiting to be loaded. But yesterday, a couple things took place. It was the first day, the first 24-hour period after casting this 50-50 blend up, and I was just dying to know what the BHN had risen to. I had expected, this is mathematically expected, you know, where you run your little formula like Rotometal shows us to use. I had expected to see a 8.65 BHN hardness to that 50-50 mix. Well, on the cast day, 4 or 5 hours, 4 hours maybe, after casting all this up, I measured one of those slugs, and so I just call that a cast day measurement. And it measured 9.2 BHN. And it was a little alarming to me, but I know that we can handle 9.2 BHN subsonic velocities because we've done it over and over and over. I've got a little box full of hollow points that have worked out fine, but their blends have been lots of 10. Here we don't have a lot of 10, but we do have some arsenic in there, a minute amount from the wheel weights, and we've got the old antimony that makes things hard and brittle. So this morning I get up and rush down here. Now it's 48 hours, and I expect to see at this point in time the major part of the rise of the hardness as that bullet blend settles out and becomes age hardened. And then of course from this big jump at first, it'll slowly rise over a period. The longest I've studied is like a year. And then after it gets to a year, it'll drop back a point or so. And then it just is stable from now on till something else happens to that lead, like heat or remelt it, something like that. Or powder coat it, you know, and then that changes everything. And then the scale starts all over again. But anyway, this morning I come in here and I'm thinking I'm going to see that 10.4 that rose drop a little bit now, and then it's going to start on a steady, very slow incline. Well, this morning I see a 14.3 measurement. And it just took me back. I just can't be. No way. So I put that little slug back in the press, timed another 30-second dimple, slid it back under old Bacon's microscope, and took a look at it. By God, 14.3 BHN. All right, so now I'm flabbergasted. I don't know what to say. But yesterday, before I got to the flabbergastion of this today, yesterday I was working up some pistol loads and trying to be real accurate, because these two here, the little round nose with a triangle, I'm calling them tri-cavity, with a tri-cavity, and this little semi-wad cutter here with the tri-cavity, those two come out of that mold I just got back. Now the round nose is based on the, I put them away. It's based on a 452374 profile Lyman, which is a 225 grain round nose. Okay, it's based on that profile, but you can see it does not have that round nose anymore. Is that a little better? It's chopped off where that pin comes into the mold and puts the hollow point in it. So this is shorter. So what I did yesterday was measure the standard round nose 225 grain, because that's the load table I'm working from, figuring out new loads for this stuff that does not exist. So I subtract the difference between this one and the length of the normal round nose, and then I add or take that difference off of the cartridge overall length measurement that we're given in our load tables for that round nose. You kind of follow me there? I'm trying to basically keep the base of the bullet the same all the way across between the full round nose and this little cut off version, and with these MP mold cut points here, cups and pinnas. These are just, I think they're a little tiny bit, they're only like 5/1000ths difference. But I think this one's a little taller. No, it's a little shorter. Anyway, so I'm trying to come up with new cartridge overall lengths for these new hollow points. And then I can work up an individual load that may or may not exceed the maximum load of the original 225 grain round nose. You follow me? Because these are lighter. Now, this little 452-460 semi-wad cutter, I've got a load table for it, because this is a common Lyman cast bullet, and you find them in most of your manuals, so that one wasn't a problem. Then I had to attack this oh, that's got a plug in it, hang on, there we go. This big 245 grain semi-wad cutter, this is a 45237. Come on, Charlie, where is it? 452423. So the hollow point version, I'm basing on that a regular full profile of a solid semi-wad cutter. So these are a little bit lighter, depending on your lead mix, of course. But it's safe to use that table. I just had a heck of a hard time finding any information at all about this in a 45 ACP. So I was having to try and work that load up, and that's the first one I started with. And so I just used its counterpart, that regular semi-wad cutter that without a hollow point, to do my load calcs over the Crony to see where we're going to stop on this. I wanted to shoot it as fast as I could, but I don't want to run my loads into the plus P area. I want to keep all this below plus P, just standard velocities. So that brings up another subject, or another tunnel in the rabbit hole, so to speak. The old timers saying, yeah, just mix 50-50, you'll be fine. They might have been correct. In fact, I think they were correct to some extent, but not correct in subsonic velocity. You understand what I'm saying? If we have like the 38, the 45 ACP, these low pressure pistols, the ones I've been working with, if they're subsonic, that means I can only attain speeds up to 1,000 or 1,100, and that's really pushing it. Depends on the profile and the weight. But where am I going with this? Oh yeah, about the old timers maybe being correct. I'll show you why I think maybe they were, because their influence, think about my grandfather, born in 1901 or something, right in through there. He definitely had to be influenced by Elmer Keith and some of the early guys working on hollow points and working against leading and trying to shoot fast and develop the right lubes and stuff. But I think that their influence came from a Magnum pistol cartridge like the 357 or the 41 or the 44. So in a sense, maybe they could be right saying, yeah, 50-50 will work for you. And I'll show you why I think that. Hang on just a sec. Well, I thought this was going to be a real extravaganza of hollow points and stuff. Not only did I color code them, but I went in there and engraved all their bases so there'd be no confusion as to which one was which. There was going to be 30 samples to look at. But like I was saying yesterday, I went through all the trouble. Well, it was no trouble. It's just I went through all the moves of using the standard reference 45237 round nose 225 grain, and I measured its projectile overall length at 660. So I wanted to discover what these new cartridge overall lengths compared to this standard would be, so that I could keep the bases and the space inside the case the same, and then that load here would be more meaningful. The only thing that would change would be the weight. So I started with like the Pentas. I measured its overall projectile length, subtracted that from this as the standard, then subtracted that difference from 1.272, which this one's supposed to be linked as, came up with a new coal of 1207. So I did that for the little tri-cavity round nose, came up with a new length on it, 1.217. And then of course the 200 grain semi-wad cutter tri-cav, it's got its own listings in the low book, so I didn't have to worry about it. But that led me to starting out with the load calculations, and then, you know, from there look at this, I went through all these books here. I went through these old books. I ended up reading comments Elmer made about that cast, and decided, okay, 6 grains of unique would be a good starting point. And like I said, I used this solid profile of the semi-wad cutter. I ended up on that one with 926 feet per second, which was just a little mite fast. And if we can see real good today, you'll see that it's hard to see there, but there's cratering on both those rounds right there. The one on the right is the 6 grain load The one on the left is 5.8. I backed it down, still I got some cratering. So that kind of gives me pause when I see that. Even though you see the edges of the primer are still relatively rounded, they're not flat like you see a 40 S&W or something where it's got a sharp edge. But I tend to look at cratering, and that's kind of like the first indications of you're getting that pressure up there, boy. So anyway, I worked out a load for that hollow point, and I had cast up extras of this stuff just in case we had some kind of a little spoof happen in our testing, and I could load another one and make up for it. So I used some of those 50-50 there to do a test in the tube and see if our maximum velocities are going to work out. And as it turns out, you see that this is the heavy. It's this one here, the big one. It tried to start opening, and that was at 906 feet per second. It tried to start opening, but just couldn't do it. The stuff's too hard. And so another thing here where I told you, let's try and find some good information in this fail, is that you see where that one's starting to tear on the left edge, and on the right edge you can just see, let me get a pencil here, you can just see where it's going to tear right here. It just hadn't happened yet. And then the next thing you're going to see is that whole front lip of it there is going to be found separate from whatever's left of the base if that were to mushroom wide open. So that's telling me that we're too brittle because of that tear. Now, in the same sense, what can be expected from this profile out of a single action Army is this mushroom here. I mean, this is terrific here. It's 100% weight retention. It's not overdriven. You can see the sides are sticking pretty much straight out. But that was at 835 feet per second out of a Colt single action Army. Now, after testing that one in the tube, I moved to the Penta, thinking, well, it's one of the easiest to open up, and because of those 5 corners inside the hollow point, it gives it a tear point where you can see where that one's starting to tear and open up on 3 places. Still didn't have the velocity to make those petals separate and open up, and that was at 837 feet per second. Now, that's what you can expect out of the Penta. They probably the best hollow point going. I don't know, but for what I've done here, yes, it has been. And then here is the totally unknown Tri-Cav. That is right there and right there, semi-wad cutter, round nose. It started, but you can see it's going to take a whole bunch of pressure to get those petals open because they are thicker at the top next to the cavity, and they're, oh man, helicopters. Sorry about that. Anyway, they have thicker petals too. So that's the one I'm thinking that if I can get the lead blend just right, that I'll have a hollow point from that opens up like a 3-bladed propeller. It won't be massively wide like one of these two, but it's going to go in spinning and cutting. So I like this one. I'm this Tri-Cav. I'm kind of excited to finally find out what I can do with it. You don't see many of them around. So anyway, that's the dilemma that happened yesterday. This is all the stuff I went through measuring all of our lead, and Then I tried here to figure out what I could expect at 8.65 by doing the math. There's on cast day 9.2, next day 10.4, and so this morning I'm expecting that 10.4 to have dropped some, and instead I see the 14.3. So I'm blown away. I just don't know how to comment on this. It's a good thing that I'm keeping all this stuff organized so that I can go back and measure things over time and try and learn something about how this lead age hardens. It is no quick study. It's not easy to understand. And when you go reading in the LASC journals of Glenn Frizzell and all the other fellas that's been writing, it ain't easy to understand. So anyway, that's the story of the fail, the story of what I think we can pull out of it. And I'll have some other videos following this, but we're not nearly going to go after an extravaganza again like this. We're going to look at individual hollow points. I think it'll be a lot more simple, a lot quicker, and a lot shorter videos. All right, thanks again for watching, fellas. I'll enjoy your comments. Take care of yourselves, your family. Watch out for your neighbors, and watch that 6.
Lazy bone, sleeping in the sun. How you expect to get your day's work done?